promised you, as we were leaving the first segment of the show, that I had a surprise for you. And I wasn't going to tell you exactly what. Well, I've got a couple of them in this show. But the very first one, ladies, I want to introduce you to the man. You've seen all of his work. And I want to introduce you to the man himself, David Tupaz, from David Tupaz Couture. I'm telling you, my friend, we met for the very first time this past Friday. And we were at an event. Chef Q had an event at Queens Ridge Place. We had an absolutely fantastic time. I have been a fan of yours. The very first thing I did, you're like setting up everything. You and your mom, Sally, are setting everything all up. I come running over and I go, hi, you're David Tupaz. And you go, yes, I am. And I go, I'm like a huge fan of yours. Your work is beautiful.
Thank you.
It really is. I mean, you've done work for just about everyone. I mean, Kris Kardashian's work.
I did everything from Bill Shatner to Julia Roberts. So, yeah.
And the Oscars?
Yeah, I always do things for the Oscars, but I tend to kind of like approach the women who pay. Okay? I don't kind of like give my stuff away because a lot of the actors and the actresses, they just tend to borrow stuff. Even, you know, I always say this, that, you know, during the Academy Awards, it's the time when the jewelries are real, but the cleavage is questionable. So, you know how it works.
I do, you know, the whole thing, though, is absolutely gorgeous and glamorous and everything else. But what drew you to doing design? And I've always wanted to ask me, did you just like wake up one morning and go, I want to do design? I mean, I talked to your mom, so I got a little insight on what it really was, but go ahead.
Well, I've always, since I was small, I was just a little boy, I've always been attracted to art and design and culture and all that. And I graduated actually interior design, but I never pursued it, because fashion came into my life at that point, and I went to fashion instead of pursuing interior design. Because fashion is the only industry that changes every season. There's no other industry in the world. The computer industry doesn't change every season. No. You know, the food industry doesn't change, the automotive industry, but fashion changes every season. What you saw last summer, you will never see again until 25 years later, when it's revived all over again. So that's how fast it is. And I think the challenge of that creative growth and process on creating new stuff every season is amazing to me. It just never stops.
And the other part that goes along with that is that the perception of beauty, I think. Does that change the perception of beauty in images?
Well, I won't think so. I think human beings, we're very visual creatures. I mean, when we see a certain dish, just by looking at it, we think if we're going to try it, taste it, or not. It's the way we see it, even if it tastes incredible. But if it's presented not in a way that it's edible enough, you're not going to try it. The same thing, we even little children, even infants, you know, they tend to gravitate to something colorful and beautiful. You know, so it's human beings. It's very natural for us to gravitate to something beautiful. Really, it's part of who we are.
One of the things that Ella and I were listening to you when we were chatting, and I really do appreciate you not taking the time to come today, but also the conversation we had that day. It was absolutely fantastic. And your mother, Sally, she is wonderful. She is absolutely great.
Well, I take care of my mom.
How many kids
do take care of their mom?
There you go. But one of the things that you described so passionately, you said when all of society is over, that there will only be fashion. That is what determines what generation we came from, who we were, and so on and so on.
Well, a lot of people take fashion for granted, but you know, in order to survive in this planet, there's three basic things that human beings need, which is food, clothing, and shelter. And fashion comes on clothing. And a lot of people take that for granted because, you know, fashion is just there in your face. I mean, if you go to any department store or the mall, 80% of what you see, the boutiques, are all fashion. Right. So it's, but fashion is so important, as I told you that time, because fashion is like art. Fashion, art, and music are so important to our lives because it dignifies our humanity. We're the only creatures in the universe that understand this. And you know, when everything is said and done, you know, in the next 25 or in the next million years, the only thing that's really going to be left behind is art. How did we know about the Egyptian history in ancient Egypt? It's because of the paintings that they left on the walls. How about the prehistoric man? It's the paintings they left on the cave walls.
Exactly. Now, the other thing, too, is this. I also know that you are one of the founders of the Las Vegas design. We've only got about 30 seconds. But I also want to say something else to you. And that was that actually you've already contributed to the show. Not just simply in being here, but also Alexi Tarrant is Ella's stylist. In about 10 seconds, tell us how to find out about the Las Vegas
fashion design.
Can we go to a website? My time is up. I am so sorry, David. I've got to be able to have you back on again. I've got to be able to turn around and do this. Folks, we got to take a quick break. When I come back, the folks at the American Diabetes Association